everyone, and welcome to AARC's Big Ideas Theater. I'm your host, Ed Heiland, and I'm here to welcome a very special guest to our Big Ideas Theater, a first person in the Big Ideas Theater. Some of you will probably recognize him from TV, but beyond that, he's also a best-selling author, motivational speaker, and a wounded U.S. Army veteran. We're going to talk about all those things and the positive aspects that have been coming out in your life. JR Martinez, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Ed. No, it's a pleasure to be here.
It's an honor, sir, and again, thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Let's talk about it. It's been a course that changed your life. You go over to Iraq after joining the military. I wanted to ask first, we heard your keynote a little while ago. I wanted to ask first, were you an optimistic type going into the military as, I'm here to serve my country and do the best I can?
Yeah, 100%. I've always had this kind of optimistic outlook about life in general. And so for me, just to kind of give you an idea of just kind of how optimistic I was right before I deployed to Iraq. My mother, of course, was crying and emotional, and I remember giving her a hug, and I told her, I was like, "Mom, don't worry about it. I'm gonna come back. They can't stop me. One way or another, I'm coming back home." And that's just the attitude that I maintained throughout my whole life, and of course going into the military. And part of it was because I was 19 years old.
Yeah.
And
the optimism of youth.
Yeah,
sure.
The optimism of youth. Nothing's gonna happen to me.
Right.
Like I'll be fine. Even though I knew there was possibilities. But it's just, you never really wrap your head around the fact that they could become realities.
Now, you're in Iraq, you're in a vehicle, hit an IED. Give us the details.
Yeah, so it was a roadside bomb, and it was on the 5th of April of 2003, driving a Humvee, escorting the convoy. Front left tire runs over a roadside bomb, explodes. Everything inside the vehicle detonates. So within a matter of seconds now, it's engulfed in flames. There was 3 other guys in the vehicle with me. They were all thrown out of the vehicle, but I was trapped inside. And I was trapped inside for a full 5 minutes. And during that time, I was completely conscious. So, I can actually, if I was talking to someone right now about the details of that particular moment, I can go into a lot of detail because I remember it all. But I just remember mainly just thinking how I'm going to die. I'm going to die in this way, in this manner, in this place. I'm going to lose my life. That's what's going to happen. But then also thinking, I got to keep fighting. I got to keep fighting. I can't give up. I got to keep fighting. And I would just fight to keep my eyes open when they would get heavy and I would start to feel weak. Luckily, 2 of my sergeants reached inside the vehicle, pulled me out. They medevaced me, went to a local medic station set up in Iraq. There, they made the decision to put me in a medical-induced coma. And from there, I was taken to Germany. And once I was stable enough, which was about 3 days, they put me on a plane and brought me to the United States. And I came to San Antonio, Texas, to the burn unit here.
Tell us a little bit about, obviously there's got to be, you mentioned the coma, there's going to be a haze trying to figure out exactly what's happened. When did it dawn on you, just to the extent of your injuries?
I'd say probably, because there was a component of where I immediately, when I came out of my medical-induced coma, I understood kind of the physical component of how challenging it was going to be, because I obviously knew I couldn't feed myself, I couldn't walk to the restroom, I couldn't walk to the restroom, I couldn't do anything, I couldn't dress myself, I could barely sit up on myself. So I knew immediately that from a physical standpoint, there were a lot of challenges. But it wasn't until about 2 weeks after I came out of my medical-induced coma where I got the full spectrum. And what I mean by that is I realized the severity of the scars on my face, on my head, on the rest of my body, because I hadn't seen my face. And so it was, I'd say about 2 weeks after I came out of my coma when I truly understood every dynamic. And it was a little bit more than I wanted to deal with and a little bit more than I felt that I could deal with. And it sent me into this negative spiral of, I started telling my mother and staff members that I would have been better off if I would have just been allowed to just die. Because I truly felt, yeah, you saved my life, thank you. But you're telling me I can no longer be in the military again. You're telling me I can't be a part of service again, which is what I love and I fell in love with. You're telling me that I look like this and you're just going to throw me into the world when we live in such a judgmental world. How am I going to live? I'll be alive, but I won't live.
Now, how do you dig yourself out of that negative pit?
It's first and foremost it's my mother. My mother and I having a real deep heart-to-heart conversation. A lot of tears, a lot of crying, a lot of just trying to make sense of the puzzle, and ultimately just kind of relying on trusting faith, trusting that everything eventually works itself out, and just believing in that. And call us somewhat of hopeless romantics in the sense, where you just it's going to be okay, and there's something good that's going to come from this, and that's all you can do is almost mentally make yourself believe that there is something good going to come to get you through this particular phase. But then things started to get easier, things started to get a little bit better, and then you start holding on to that as physical proof that good things are coming from this particular situation.
Now I understand you also started reaching out to other burn patients.
Yes, sir. So about 6 months after I was injured, I was just kind of going through my own, motions of the beat of my own drum and going to therapy, meeting with my doctors on a daily basis, having surgeries, and I was asked to visit a patient who was in the place where I was 6 months before, just that downward spiral. Go talk to him. One of the nurses asked me, and I was like, I don't want to do it. And because my thought process was, I don't have a degree, I'm not a psychologist, like what am I truly going to be able to share with this particular individual? Not realizing that the main thing we have in common is our injuries. I can talk to him about a lot of stuff. So finally, after she kind of was like, do it, I was like, okay. And it was a positive experience. I mean, he welcomed me. At the very end, I realized the effect I had on him. And so it started this new agenda for me where every single day I visited patients. And it gave me purpose again. Even though I wasn't able to serve in the military again, I was serving in a different capacity and serving the same people.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention, of course, that you subsequently went into Dancing with the Stars and All My Children,
right.
And you have done phenomenal work there. And I mention that because we have to get to this transition. Okay, you come to the realization of the extent of your injuries.
Right.
You start coming out of the funk, you're talking to other burn patients, and how does one make the leap from that aspect of your life to I'm now an actor,
right,
now I'm a dancer?
Yeah, honestly, there's a lot of details in regards, like someone sends an email, the show wants to launch a storyline about a veteran, they try, what are the odds of us getting a real veteran with some real acting experience, which I had none, but ultimately what it boils down to, there was all these opportunities that were there, and I just said, you know what, I'm afraid, I'm terrified of these opportunities, I'm terrified of failing, I'm terrified of not being chosen for the parts, for the opportunities. However, I'm going to do it, I'm going to try. And that's literally what it consisted of, is just me trying and putting that fear to the side. And it can still live there, and it will live there until there's a little bit of body of work to where you're like, okay, I got this, and then the fear ultimately is eliminated. However, I use that fear as a driving force to motivate me to continue to learn and learn how to become an actor, and not just an average actor, but a pretty decent actor on a show for 3 years when it was only supposed to be for 3 months. And then of course, Dancing with the Stars, it was a week-to-week thing, and it was 10 weeks, and every week it was about learning and constantly putting myself in an uncomfortable place and pushing myself beyond whatever point that I felt that I couldn't go beyond that point, and I pushed myself furthermore. So, I just want people to ultimately, no matter what your profession is, no matter what you're in your personal life, like just push yourself, challenge yourself. I mean, I've had a lot of success, and I get to travel the world and have great conversations with people like yourself, but I'm in school now. I'm a freshman in college. It was time for me to do that.
Another start, if you will.
Another start, another chapter. And I always tell people, the beginning of our books, of our lives, have been written for us by our parents, by our grandparents, by everyone in society. But our middle and our end, we control that. So how do you want your own book to end in your own life? And I'm still writing, man.
They're telling me I'm out of time, but I've got to ask you, we
Yeah.
are going out to a whole bunch of respiratory therapists.
Yeah.
The therapy you received, and I know you've got some positive things to say about the respiratory therapists in your life.
Listen, the difference that so many of the respiratory therapists, because I had so much of internal damage that was going on and so many internal things that were happening with me. And one thing that I can't speak of the technical component of being a respiratory therapist and the ins and outs and the books and all that other stuff. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here simply to talk about being a patient and the difference it made for me, because when you walk into my room, I don't know you, I don't trust you, I don't want you in my room. And so there was so many therapists that walked into my room that made me feel comfortable. That, as I said, a simple thing just kind of touched me and said, this is what we're going to do, this is why we're doing it. And there would be moments where they would turn into my like psychological therapist, where I would just start venting to them about this is my situation and this, and they would listen. And it was just about maintaining that human component, that human connection with the patient, and not just looking at them simply as another caseload. It's just looking at them as, this can be your son, this can be your daughter, this can be your family member, your friend, this could potentially be you at some point in your life. And so, I've had a great experience with respiratory therapists, and I just want all of you, no matter what you're going through in your personal life, I get it, it's hard, but come to work every single day enthusiastic, optimistic, excited about the people that you're going to help, the people that you're going to save, and how you're going to help them ultimately get into their world and start living their lives and being happy with their lives again. So understand, not only are you saving lives, but you're empowering people to go out and live productive lives, and that's a pretty special thing.
Well, you have been an inspiration to so many people, and I want to thank you so much for coming by
Thank
and
you
joining
so
us
much,
here in the
man.
Big Ideas
It was a pleasure.
Theater.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I think the first interview did well.
I was going
right?
to say, you broke
All
it
right,
in
sounds good.
classic style. Thank you so much. This is AARC.